From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Well, we want to bring out two more of our cartoonists. So we have with us two cartoonists, two political cartoonists, both with the Washington Post Writers Group. Last year we had a political cartooning panel, and not a lot has gone on in the last year in terms of politics. But we decided, we would do this again anyway. And what we've done is we have a cartoonist from the left and cartoonist from the right. From the left, we have Ann Telnaes, who's on the WashingtonPost.com site. Earlier this year, she won the Reuben Award. She is the first woman to win both the Reuben Award and the Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning. She has had a book out here, Humor's Edge, 2004, and also had a show here at the Jefferson Building. And she works in a beautiful animation style. We also have Mike Lester from the right, up here from Florida, escaping any potential hurricanes. And he has the book Cool Daddy Rat, and they can come on out. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Welcome, guys. Well, thanks. One thing is I'm curious, with all you now are working from real life and you're finding inspiration from real life. Does real life consistently inspire you, or sometimes does real life get so difficult your imagination just has to go into overdrive? Can you talk about that, getting inspiration from?
You already said it. It's an embarrassment of riches right now.
Yeah.
No matter what side you may find yourself. What Ann and I do is really just counterpunch to news cycles and stories, and at least that's what I do. And
yeah,
it's not the worst job in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And what about you, Ann? Is it
Well, I've been doing political cartoons since the Clinton administration, and usually, we just got off summer, right? And usually for editorial cartoonists, summer is such a slow time that you're looking for things to comment on, like reading lists on the beach and things like that. And, now we have to actually choose. I find myself going, what do I want to comment on first?
Yeah.
Or what's more important?
Yeah.
So it's definitely, it's different.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're working from real life in a different way, but you're dealing with some serious themes. Is that, what is it like to work with that? Because it's so different from fiction, you have to respect it in a different way.
You're talking about the nonfiction work that I'm working on.
With Dragon Hoops.
Yeah, it's, I don't know how you all feel about this, but it seems to me that as soon as you cartoon, you're adding a perspective, you're adding a layer of fiction. And I guess that's true for like documentary films as well.
Yeah.
But in cartoons, it's just much more pronounced. Everything is filtered through your own pen, right? Your own style.
And even real people have to become a character, right? They have to become yours. Can you talk about
and in the beginning,
evolution?
this is the first nonfiction thing that I've done, and in the beginning I felt like I was lying.
Yeah.
I felt like I was constantly lying. Every time I drew a character, because it came out in my style, I was lying. And at a certain point, I just had to make peace with that.
So you're creating fake news cartoons.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
I guess so.
But what about you, Mike? Does it take time for a real person to become yours, like you've adopted that real person?
Well, a lot of young cartoonists, I've talked to them for years and years, and they all want to know how to get their style.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wrong question to ask, because I don't think you have any choice in what your style is if you're working honestly.
Yeah.
And that's an old quote, your style is the result of your most honest labors. I don't know who said it, but it wasn't me. I'm just requoting it.
Yeah.
And I don't think if you're really trying to put out something that's honest from yourself, I don't have a choice in how I draw really anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just, and it is an editorial statement, whether I write and put any words to it or not.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at this stage of the game, I'm kind of stuck with that.
Yeah, that's like your thumbprint. It's
Yes.
what you are. Well, we need to say goodbye to Gene Lewin Yang. We want to thank him, and I think we deserve applause loud enough that his parents can hear. Thank you. Thank
Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay.
Want me to slide over?
Well, yeah, please. Can you stay, Mike? There you go. Well, what I want to make sure, because you guys brought so many great cartoons from both sides, I want to get to that. But to understand, like, Mike also creates a strip, Mike de Jour, where you get to have fun and step away from it. And Ann trained at CalArt, studied character animation and does these beautiful animations and works in watercolor as well. And so, you know, you both have such distinct voices and passions. Could you each talk about sort of what's it like? Did it take a while to find your voice and find your style? Did it come quickly? Can you talk about that?
It's interesting because I actually started out as an animator. I had no interest in editorial cartooning when I was a young woman.
Yeah.
So, you know, my style was based on, you know, what I learned for animation.
Yeah.
But when I started doing editorial cartooning, you know, I was looking at other people's work and I was mimicking them. And at the time it was cross-hatching,
Yeah.
right?
Sure,
the pen
absolutely.
And I realized that, you know, editorial cartooning you have to do really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to get one out a day, and I couldn't do them fast.
Yeah.
So I thought, what can I do fast?
Yeah.
Well, I had learned how to use a brush and ink for my licensing work. And so I just started doing it that way. So I didn't consciously think about a style, but it evolved because I had to do them fast.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. And I always encourage young people, you know, don't get hung up on doing a style. The style will come. You just want to really learn, you know, what it is you want to say.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry what it looks like. You can look at other people's work, but put it aside and then just do your own stuff because it will develop.
Yeah. Well, as I understand it, you have something in common with a lot of young people now, in that it was quite a while before you actually read a newspaper.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that
now,
embarrassing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But events like the Anita Hill hearings, Tiananmen Square,
Right.
They politically engaged you. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
did not read a news. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I was working for the Walt Disney Company. I was an Imagineer, a show designer, and I had no interest in politics. I mean, I knew about editorial cartoons because I liked the artwork, so I looked at them. But until I was working late one night and I watched, it was 1989, and the Tiananmen Square massacre unfolded on television.
Watching that tank come out in the student
I
and all
watched
that.
those students that were close to my own age get mowed down by their own government, that I felt the need that I needed to say something through my art.
Yeah.
So that's when I started trying to become an editorial cartoonist.
Yeah. You say trying, you're humble. It seemed to come quickly.
Well, it took a few years, but
Yeah. And what about you, Mike? I mean, did you grow up political? Were your parents political?
Not at all.
Yeah. When did it come?
I grew up on the floor with a comics page on Sundays and most every day, and then the box scores. So and I was the farthest thing from interested in politics.
And this was in Georgia.
And
right?
I really wish I weren't so interested now.
Because why?
Make life a lot simpler for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, I started out in another field, just like I was. You know, I could just always draw.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could write.
Yeah.
But I knew I could draw, and I had that down. But it doesn't matter if you can draw if in the editorial and the comic strip business if you don't have anything to say. Mm-hmm. And that took some time. I wasn't very good at it right out of the box.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was in a small town, and but you know, I worked at it. I think I got a little bit better. I found my own voice, both in the comic strip and the editorial. And I was really tired at the time. I was doing advertising, and you know, I was tired of drawing storyboards for drug companies, and it's nice work, but it's just not a whole lot to take home with you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this will get the crowd fired up. I know. Let's go to the cartoons. because, so we'll start with Ann, and Ann, you do a lot of things about freedom of the press and rights, and I think you said to me, we were speaking last year ahead of the election, saying you wanted to get as many cartoons out while you still had a certain protected freedom of the press in case it might be endangered very soon. Well, but could you talk about some of your, your passion about cartooning about rights and freedoms?
Right. Well, I've always been interested in it, but especially since the Danish cartoon controversy in 2005.
Yes.
And then, of course, the Charlie Hebdo murders a few years ago. I go overseas for a lot of conferences, and I talk to my colleagues there, and they actually do have to deal with people wanting to throw them in jail for their cartoons as well as kill them.
Absolutely.
And we've had many incidents about that, but I always thought, we had the First Amendment, we're fine.
Yeah.
We still have the First Amendment, but I'm very worried about this administration because we have a president that doesn't seem to understand what the First Amendment is. Mm-hmm. And he seems to think that the free press is his own personal PR firm. So I think we're in danger. And
he's also called him the enemy.
He's called him the enemy. Mm-hmm. This is dangerous talk, mm-hmm. and I really am concerned for editorial cartoonists because we really are on the front line. And the reason that we are is even though we're funny, and we do cartoons, we do images, and images can reach anyone. Words are different. People actually have to know how to read, know the language. But editorial cartoons, especially with the internet, can reach wide, and that's why the Charlie Hebdo, the Danish cartoon controversy happened. So I am worried about it now. It's something to be concerned about, and I think especially young people should understand that this isn't something you should ignore. This is your future if you can speak up the way you want to speak. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot more work about it now.
Yeah. And so you have Trump trying to muzzle
justice.
Yes.
Yes, so, he's hard at it.
Yeah. And part of it with that is the on social media, your images, they're removed. I mean, they can go out and sort of people can attach their own words and try to reframe even what you've drawn. And so we're in an era now where everything, what you take is almost repurposed. And I, recently have interviewed a few political cartoonists, including like Gary Varvel. President Trump retweeted, someone memed what he did, changed the meaning of the cartoon.
Right.
Different. It got reinterpreted, and I even interviewed Gary, and he's like, the person who did it and that Trump retweeted, it was a different meaning entirely from what he meant.
Right.
But people don't know that. And
social media has definitely contributed to that. Yeah. I mean, it's good for us in one sense. I reach a lot more people through my Twitter account. But the problem is social media can also, like you said, people will interpret it the way they want to interpret it, and then they will retweet it, and then they'll say something about the cartoon, which was not the original intent of the cartoon.
Yeah.
I've seen journalists even do this, people that ought to know better talking about a cartoon and presenting this cartoon as something that it is not.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're still kind of dealing with, actually.
Yeah, we're still very much changing. Before I go on, I do want to make a point. Being online, I get, we all get hate mail and vitriol, and there's a coarseness that comes with the anonymity of social media. But I will say there's so few women in political cartooning, but even columnists at the Post who are female. To me, it turns my stomach what you get called as a result of that. How do you, you're tough, but how do you deal with that?
Well, like you said, editorial cartoonists, we've dealt with hate mail forever. I mean, we're told always, we're stupid, our cartoons are stupid. Yeah. First it's with mail, then it goes to email, and then it's social media.
Yeah.
The thing about social media now for women, and it's not just editorial cartoonists, it's gamers.
Yeah.
It's female journalists. It's those two sports journalists.
Yes.
The misogyny is amazing. Yeah. I have never in my 25 years of editorial cartooning received the kind of misogynistic crap I've gotten in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I used to think you just sort of ignore it. I think the people that kind of take it on head on is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Now I will speak up.
Yeah.
And I like it when my supporters speak up as well, because it's just not acceptable. But you know, it's like being.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting to free speech and rights, Mike, we know that there are certain comedians who talk a lot now about how they won't go to campuses or they get protested because they feel as though campuses, what used to be bastions of free speech, it's now the opposite. They feel like they're bastions of political correctness. Can you talk about your view and this cartoon?
Yeah, go back to the media. Let me look at that backwards.
Okay.
For many years now, I have worked in media and newspapers, and they're my biggest target.
Yeah.
By and large.
Yeah. Like The Daily Show. You know, The Daily Show was created not as a political show. I've interviewed the co-creator of the show, and I've talked to Jon Stewart and the Colbert's producer, and it was started because it felt like news wasn't doing its job.
Right.
And it became a critique of media.
I love my job. I love the career and the discipline of doing it. But I also think that I'm not going to be presumptuous enough to think I have a responsibility. But I take a lot of shots at my own field, and you know, it's no different than well, you know, you were talking about college campuses, and college campuses have, like media, I think have lost their way a little bit. It is the place in America that you shouldn't be afraid to say, hey, the emperor's naked. Now you can't say that right now, even though he is. So that's an old and a small metaphor that I assume everybody gets, but that's how I see it right now. And I'll go a little further and say, I'm not a fan of politicians. I'm not a fan of this president. I'm not a fan of the last one. But that's my job, at least I think so. But I think the media was a little bit. I think the last 8 years, we had the exact opposite. I think we're kind of overreacting now, and I think we underreacted for the previous 8 years. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
You may have yours.
Do you speak at colleges?
I haven't lately.
Yeah. By choice? Or?
No, I just I just haven't lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
I'll speak anywhere.
Okay, okay. Well, you know, you're not holding back on this one in terms of free speech and using a Game of Thrones, you know, metaphor. Could you talk about this one?
Well, that's not a metaphor. There really is a class at Berkeley called Game of Thrones as a Second Language.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes jokes write themselves.
Yeah.
And if they're going to do that, I'm just going to, I'm notorious for, if we're going to go that far, I can usually go further.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the emperor here. You know, you each take your shots, and you developed. You told me before last year you were running out of orange and pink pigments, especially orange. You literally had to stock up, and not for the flames. You know, but you have really developed this comic body, the hair, his tie only gets longer, and you only get more pointed. You're able to turn these around at an incredible rate. I mean, just these beautiful works. But can you talk about Trump as a target specifically?
Well, caricature to me is not about how the person looks.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I really feel like a successful caricature is about who the person is. During the Bush administration, my favorite was Cheney. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say my Cheney didn't look like Cheney, but it felt like Cheney.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's been happening with Trump.
Yeah.
It's not just about him being orange or whatever. I mean, the tie is wonderful. It's a wonderful visual metaphor. You can do all kinds of things with that tie. But, you know, going back to what this was about was his rhetoric before he became president, what he did during the entire election. And I have to say, I think the editorial cartoonist did a really fantastic job about knowing exactly who Trump was from the beginning. Our media, and I totally agree with Mike, and Mike and I never agree on anything, ever. But
I like you.
But I totally agree with him about the media. The media did a horrible job leading up to Trump. As they did during the lead up to the Iraqi war. You know, they were laughing about him. I mean, I watched journalists giggle through interviews with him. And we were, frankly, frightened about him. So, you know, Mike and I, you know, the thing about the free speech, I am totally with Mike on this. I mean, I think the more free speech, the better. You know, if you threaten me, though, that is not your free speech. If you're going to hit me in the head with a baseball bat, that I've been told before, that is not free speech. But you can say anything you want, but be prepared for me to come back at you. You know, I'll draw a cartoon about it, and I'll argue with you. But what's kind of interesting about where we are now is someone like Mike, who's very conservative, and I'm very liberal. I think on speech, we're like exactly the same. It's all the people in the middle that are having a problem.
Can I just add to that?
No. What?
See, there's a reason I'm sitting in the middle.
Go ahead.
Did he just go?
I like this. Is that no? No.
I think.
Are you signing from the left or right on this?
I asked him if he could do a Southern accent. He said yes. All right. Now you threw me. The free speech. Okay.
You're on the same on this. Well, you're talking about the middle. You know, it's famous. You know, when I would do political cartoons, they talked about the people who get run over, those in the middle of the freeway. If you're on one side or the other, you know where you stand. In the middle is where you can get lost. But you guys are on the same in this, and I wanted to get. And this is yours. Part of what ties this free speech is also what we have going currently with Charlottesville, post-Charlottesville, with the monuments. And, you know, can you talk about your take on that?
Well, it's a quote that it's a rather obscure quote, one that but I'm also I'm into obscurities. And the quote is, "Nations are based as much on what the people jointly forget as what they remember." It was I believe a Frenchman named Ernest Kennan, an Englishman, I'm sorry. And of course I have the construction ones guy saying this one's got to go. Yeah, maybe the monument's got to go, but that sentiment doesn't need to go. I mean, we got here somehow, some way, and I just don't think that that sanitizing how we got here is really all that instructive. I think it's kind of living in the rearview mirror, if you will. You know, maybe there are things that that need to be removed, museumed, what have you. But I think there's a lot of emphasis placed on trying to rectify things we're never going to rectify.
Yeah. Well, you grew up. You know, you're from Georgia, live in Florida now. What kind of feedback do you get on your monument-oriented cartoons?
Well, nobody knows me in Florida, but I get, I get my share of unflattering email. One thing, I wanted to get to as we go through is, and this is, I love that. And just your sense that, Melania won't hold his hand. We all remember that, right? And whereas in terms of going around the world, you have your Cuba possible. I just want everyone to see these since we're limited on time. Can't see them. Can they? They'll cue them up if they can't. But Ann,
one thing you've talked about how, I mean, you talked during, about Anita Hill, about how it was male senators, right?
Right.
And then if they can see, I don't know if they can see the cartoon, but here you have to this day with health care, you have men deciding it. So it's like what's changed in that
Nothing.
25? You're still drawing way more men than women when
I
it
am.
comes to these. And how does that?
It's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Anita Hill was what, 91?
Yes, exactly.
And I remember at the time, you know, of course, it was both Democratic and Republican senators, and they were all clueless. They all, you know, thought that she was not necessarily lying, but they didn't really believe her for sexual harassment.
Yeah.
That wasn't around anymore.
Yeah.
So that's you know, and then I don't understand where. Don't they understand optics at all?
Yes,
You know, they
yes.
have all these men in the photograph,
yeah.
and they just don't.
They don't.
They haven't learned.
Well, I want to go through several and can get a sense of, you know, this is how Mike, his take on Obamacare, since we went through Trump, and you're again the power.
Yes.
Yes.
This was before.
Yes.
When she ran.
Yes.
And remember when she wouldn't cry, and they were like, she needs to show emotion.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh come on,
Yeah.
if she cried, then she'd get blamed for that too. She's too weak to become president.
Yeah.
So you know, it's all about, you know,
Yeah.
if a witch actually
Yeah.
sinks or floats.
Absolutely. The old idea.
And that one was recently about, you know, I think it's outrageous. The things that Trump says and does, can you imagine if a woman said that?
Yeah. Or
Can you imagine?
or a candidate.
There's
of
no
color.
way she'd be excused for
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to the other side.
Yeah.
Convince me.
So you have a different take on Hillary.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. That's. I think she ought to be in the financial business, because anyone who can leave the White House without a penny to their name and is now worth $300 million can help us all. So maybe we should have elected her.
Well, if she's such a good business person, shouldn't she be in the White House? Isn't that the argument
Isn't
now?
that what Trump ran on? I'm leaning back. Well, she's the best darn change maker he ever met. So here we go. Speaking of money and Hillary at business. So yeah, and
The tie.
the tie, and here it comes. Yeah, and the cutout deal, and just you have such fun with him physically. And there it is again.
The tie again.
The tie. I think it's getting longer.
It's a great. You can do, you know,
Yeah.
your direction things,
Yeah.
and it's red.
And it's red. And there, that one's that's just beautiful, actually. So you may need to stock up. And here's one of the animations. So stroking. that's how can, if they want that as a screensaver, is there a way they can, anyone from the left want to, yeah. I like how he's not moving too. He's very comfortable. And of course, wind him up and watch him go. That's a lot of red. That's a lot of red. And of course, everyone.
That was when Spicer finally let go.
Yeah. Yeah. And he finally got to meet the Pope once he let go. So things worked out. And you know, you have Russia still very much with us. So you could probably keep bringing this one out and drinking. If everyone can see that. And so one question I have, because we have just a few minutes before we bring the next cartoonist out, is, you know, Ann, you had, as we know, a Ted Cruz cartoon, you know, in depicting that the Post took down, and it had the organ grinder metaphor. And Mike, one of your most controversial, involved depicting, you know, with Sandra Fluke, in depicting the Obama as her pimp, basically.
Yep.
And these are things like, even that's so far above the daily kind of thing. What do you, since you need to have tougher skin, just quickly, could you each talk about what do you do when that comes? How do you gird yourself against that?
Well, there was a surprise. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the first time I think editorial cartoons have really had social media play such a large role in why a cartoon gets that kind of pushback.
Yeah,
Because it happened so fast.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you know, it happened 2 days before Christmas, so that is another thing. I don't work in the office, I'm at home. All these things kind of contributed to it. You know, like I said, we are used to pushback. I don't have a problem with pushback. For me, the misogynistic physical threats were different, and I didn't care for that.
Yeah.
We have an association for editorial cartoonists. They supported me. They put out a statement, which was great for me at the time. But you know, we all have to deal with it, unfortunately, and social media is definitely a whole new wrench in it.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it's happening more and more now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, your sense?
Well, the cartoon you referenced was easily as the first administration of Obama, and you know, I signed my name. I don't apologize, and you know, nothing kills a joke easier or faster than explaining it. So I stand by it.
So would you like to explain it?
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. You got Sandra Fluke, who was asking for $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
And contraception.
Yeah.
Welfare from Columbia, no, Georgetown.
Yeah.
And Obama came out and supported her.
Yeah, yeah. So Sandra, if you're here, I don't know, but she's in town. Anyway, well, thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.